Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Hello and welcome to Looking at the Markets with David Modell. Treating neurological infections and neurodegenerative diseases is a challenge with far-reaching implications in the global medical community. On the cutting edge of this ongoing battle to improve the longevity and quality of life for patients is Inhibikase Therapeutics. Today I have the honor of speaking with President and CEO Dr. Milton Werner. Welcome to Looking at the Markets, and thank you for allowing me the time to speak with you today, sir.
Oh, I appreciate that, David. I appreciate you taking some time to learn about Inhibikase and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, well, it'll be an education for me and for the audience as well, I believe. Now, unfortunately, Parkinson's disease impacts millions of patients and families today. What is lacking in the currently available treatment modalities?
Well, the problem we have in Parkinson's disease is that we have no treatment modalities that actually benefit patients at all. All of the current treatments try to deal with the symptoms of the disease, but no current treatments are actually dealing with the disease itself. And so we've lacked what we call disease-modifying therapies for a long time. Inhibikase feels it's at the forefront of trying to solve this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just how big is the addressable market opportunity for Parkinson's disease modifications?
Well, it's a huge market. It's the second largest neurological disease in the United States, about 1 million prevalent cases in the United States, about 10 million worldwide. If you were to put that on par with Alzheimer's disease, there are about 6 million Alzheimer's cases in the US, about 20 million worldwide. And so it would be a very large market opportunity, and the companies that get to the point of modifying disease first are going to have both a good financial outcome, but better yet, are really going to now solve problems for patients that have been intractable. And I think we're sitting on the precipice.
Absolutely. That's a huge opportunity. I want to talk about the robust drug development pipeline for Inhibikase Therapeutics. In basic terms, how does IKT01427 inhibit the development of Parkinson's disease?
Well, it's not so much that we're inhibiting development of Parkinson's disease. What we are doing is disrupting the process that the disease takes. So for a long time, diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, ALS, and others fell into a bucket we call misfolded protein diseases. So what that means is that a protein that exists in the body is somehow become disorganized and forms an aggregate or a clump, or what we commonly refer to as plaque. And we assume that since the plaque only shows up when you have the disease, that getting rid of the plaque would actually result in a benefit to the disease. But thus far, in Parkinson's, in Alzheimer's, and in other diseases of this type, no method of removing the plaque has resulted in a clinical outcome. That's true even for a recently approved drug, which seems counterintuitive. What Inhibikase has discovered is that, in fact, what we believe the role of the misfolded protein or plaque is in the disease process. And what that role is that it's taken up as an aggregate that forms in response to certain kinds of injuries, random events, environmental exposures, what have you. And most forms of Parkinson's occur randomly. They're not inherited in any way. And once you form these misfolded proteins or aggregates, they're present in your brain and present in your GI tract. And in both locales, the neurons that are affected can take up these aggregates or plaques sporadically or without any active involvement. Once on the inside of the affected neurons, that's when the disease really starts. And that's one of the key discoveries Inhibikase has been able to make, that all of the action of the plaque or misfolded protein occurs on the inside of the affected neurons. And what results from these neurons taking up these clumps or plaques is that it triggers a surveillance mechanism. And that surveillance mechanism inside the neurons is built to try to suppress any toxicity or abnormality that these plaques represent. And the typical way you suppress toxicity in the body is to kill a cell. So you degenerate that cell, hence neurodegeneration. So what Inhibikase discovered was what the surveillance mechanism is. That surveillance mechanism is what's known as the Abelson tyrosine kinase, or what we refer to as c-Abl. And IKT014 inhibits the action of c-Abl. And the outcome of that treatment is to both suppress the spread of that toxicity from one neuron to the next, but even more importantly, IKT014 also reactivates inherent mechanisms in each neuron that takes up the plaque that can drive the degradation of the plaque so that the plaque doesn't kill the neuron itself. What we've seen in validated animal models, when we give this drug orally once a day, weeks or months into the treatment program, is that in fact we can stop the disease progression in its tracks, and we can drive recovery of lost function. In many cases, the recovery of that lost function looks complete in animals. We are not stating, certainly not yet, that we could achieve that level of dramatic outcome in patients. We do, however, expect to see some benefit, and we'll find out how good that benefit is in the coming months.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. What I really want people to do is to visit the website, inhibicase.com. I'll put a link in the description below this video to make it easy. People could just click or tap on that. Also, if people want to check out the stock, it is on the NASDAQ exchange, IKT. It's as simple as that if you want to get involved as an investor. But make sure you research the company first. That's why we have this video and the website. Links in the description below. Now, how far along the clinical advancement pathway is IKT0148009, and what are the next anticipated milestones?
Well, 1409 entered the clinic in February of this year, and we completed our phase 1 studies in just 4.5 months. Usually it takes about 14 months to do those studies in their entirety. The reason we were able to accelerate these processes were some good luck and some efficient execution. So what the phase 1 studies allowed us to know is how safe the drug appears in human beings, how well distributed is the drug in the body, what concentrations does it reach as a function of oral dose, etc. And these parameters give us a lot of information about how well this drug could perform in a human being, and can it reach the target tissue, your brain and your GI tract in this case, to actually influence the disease. And so those outcomes were all very positive. We submitted all that data to the FDA in late May, and in early July, we got clearance from the FDA, or an agreement with the FDA was made to allow us to go into Parkinson's patients with very few or no restrictions really. And so what's coming up next in the coming months will be to dose our first Parkinson's patients beginning in roughly mid-September. We'll be doing several dose escalations in a small number of patients, 8 patients per group. That'll occur over a 3 to 5 month period. And then we'll enter into more efficacy-focused studies in the early part of next year. And that's when the real outcomes will begin to be realized. What we hope will happen is that once-a-day oral therapy will actually result in benefit by suppressing the toxicity of the misfolded protein. We'll be measuring outcomes for brain function and how well a patient has improvements in movement or in thinking. We'll be doing the same thing in the GI tract, where the disease is also highly prevalent. Are patients processing food normally? Are they going to the bathroom normally? And do we see recovery of that function that correlates with the impact of the drug and its treatment? So I think in the coming 6 to 9 month period, we'll begin to see the emergence of really how effective therapy like this could be. What's underlying all of this work, of course, is that we worked out in animal models all of the detailed pathways and factors that are involved in the disease process. And once we had that information, we knew how we could go about treating it in people. And so now, for the first time, a mechanistically focused treatment is going to be realized in patients. Perhaps the first time we'll begin to see real treatment benefit in Parkinson's disease itself.
Yeah. Now, Inhibicase Therapeutics is also advancing IKT001 for pro-chronic myeloid leukemia, as well as IKT01427 for PML. Can you give us a brief summary of these treatments, please?
Sure. So IKT01 Pro, as we call it, is a prodrug of the anti-cancer agent Gleevec or imatinib that's used to treat stable phase chronic myelogenous leukemia, or CML. We're developing that project not because we're trying to be yet another company developing a protein kinase inhibitor for oncology, but instead to validate the prodrug mode of delivery. So what a prodrug is a way of masking one part of a compound that has an active signature, and you're masking it to suppress some sort of side effect or property. In this case, what we wanted to do was to develop a general platform for suppressing on-dosing side effects of kinase inhibitor therapy. 001 Pro, like 14809, are both protein kinase inhibitors. They inhibit the Abelson family kinases. And as a consequence, it's been commonly observed in the cancer community when such inhibitors are applied that there's a lot of GI distress, so nausea, diarrhea, vomiting occur. And it occurs in about half of all patients. And patients who take these drugs chronically feel sick all the time. And so what we wanted to do was to remove that experience from the patients so that way they'd be more inclined to stay on treatment. 001 Pro in a preclinical setting looks extremely good at suppressing all of these GI side effects. We saw this as an early commercial opportunity to complement the more ambitious programs of 14809. And now we are close to being able to get clearance from the FDA through a submission of an IND or new drug application, investigational new drug application, so that we can go into the clinic and validate that these statements are true and then move it into a new drug application phase in the coming year. 1427 is a fairly early stage compound for a unattended side effect of some immune suppressive drugs, like drugs you take for MS, drugs you take for Crohn's disease. And PML stands for progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy. It involves a viral infection that moves from your kidney into your brain and can cause death. It's a very rare side effect of immune suppressive therapies, but it's one that affects many, many products that are commonly taken by a wide range of patients in the United States. And so we've been seeking for ways to how to suppress this viral transmission event to occur. Again, the Abelson tyrosine kinase, or c-Abl, is involved in that process from our studies, and 1427 may be able to suppress that virus from causing death alongside treatments for MS, etc.
Yeah. Now, you also have an amazing technology here called RAMP Drug Innovation Engine and another one called the prodrug technology. Can you briefly describe those, please?
Sure. So the prodrug technology is what I was just alluding to. It's a way of masking a portion of a small molecule drug so that it can not cause certain side effects like this GI distress. The RAMP program is much more elaborate. So, when we started Inhibicase about 11 years ago, we knew that we couldn't compete with large pharma companies that have giant medicinal chemistry departments, and we were just a couple of people. So what we reasoned is that we could easily tell how to improve on certain drug properties by using existing drug knowledge as a template. So for example, in the cancer community, there are 4 or 5 different drugs in the market to treat mutant Abl kinases that cause cancers. But the way those drugs bound the Abl kinase, even though the kinase was mutated to cause the disease, was informative. What pharmacology properties were favorable for patients? What side effects did we want to suppress? So what RAMP does, which stands for Reengineering Approach with Metabolism Preserved, is a way of preserving properties we like about known drugs, and yet differentiating those known drugs into a novel compound that has some properties that we use from the template, and then has enhanced properties that the template did not have. So in the case of 14809, we use the anti-cancer agent imatinib or Gleevec as the template. It doesn't get into the brain. It doesn't bind the wild-type enzyme very well, but it had many other favorable pharmacology properties, particularly that it had only one metabolite that was not easily absorbed. So you didn't have things like metabolites in the body that could cause other disruptions, other toxicities. So what we did to get to 14809 was to preserve the metabolism profile and then improve on every other property. And thus far, what we've learned in the clinic is that 14809 is a considerably safer molecule, although many more studies will have to be completed to prove that. And more importantly, we could get 14809 into the brain. Imatinib or Gleevec does not enter the brain for a therapeutic purpose. So RAMP has really been a way of capitalizing on information without just copying something that already exists.
Yeah, and not long ago, going to the fiscal side of things, Inhibicase Therapeutics released its second quarter 2021 financial results, which indicated an excellent cash position, I'm happy to say. Can you tell us about this and some of the company's financial highlights?
Sure. So we did an IPO in just 2 days before Christmas, remarkably enough. It was a small IPO, and that's sort of how Inhibicase has worked. We've worked on the cutting edge of science in neurodegeneration, for example. It was a very uncharacteristic path to take because neurodegenerative disease has been nothing but a product failure area for many, many years now in the industry. So we knew coming into the public markets that if we started with a less ambitious risk profile, took in a little money, demonstrated that 14809, for example, is a very safe in human compound at the level we analyzed it, established all the other programs that we were pushing forward towards the clinic, that would be a justification for a follow-on, which we did just 5.5 months later, raised $45 million. And now we've got roughly $48 million in cash. And that should take us all the way through phase 2. So what we wanted to do was to earn the investors' faith, if you will, in what the company is trying to achieve on a very ambitious product development set of profiles. And once we've earned that investor faith, to then execute very efficiently on those timelines. And the follow-on turned out to be, it was a pretty volatile time in the market to be doing it. We raised $45 million very cleanly. And we've been executing very efficiently since then. And one of the drivers, of course, of that follow-on was the fact that the FDA agreed with the company on moving into Parkinson's patients. That was almost a year faster than we previously had imagined when we did our IPO. And so it warranted the need for the influx of capital so we could get through all the key steps to determine if 14809 and other molecules in our portfolio have the activities in neurodegenerative disease that we would like to see. So it's been a pretty robust period for us.
Again, I want to emphasize people need to visit Inhibicase.com. Go ahead and click on that link or tap on it in the description below this video to learn more about the company. I know you're going to like what you see, and then you might choose to consider an investment in, it's on the NASDAQ, IKT is the ticker symbol of the stock. Is there anything else that you would like to tell people who would like to learn more about the exciting opportunity right now with Inhibicase Therapeutics?
Yeah, I think Inhibicase has been a little bit of an unusual company. We've been run like a business since inception. Before our IPO, we were a revenue-generating company through non-traditional means, through federal contracts and grants. And so we had the federal government paying us to conduct our research and development that we owned so we could advance these medical technologies forward and get them into the clinic. In the public markets, we've done the same thing with the 01 Pro product. It is something that could come to market fairly quickly, again, to provide a revenue base to support the company's larger, ambitious plans in development in neurodegenerative disease. And so, unlike many other life science-oriented companies, we've been built and run like a business. We have the business efficiencies, and we're demonstrating that in the public space as we execute forward. Now, with some of the validation that our design principles behind drugs like 14809 were very sound, the drug looks like it has a very good safety profile thus far, although more needs to be measured to be sure. We're very encouraged that, in fact, the mechanistic underpinnings of that drug, how it will impact Parkinson's disease, will be successful. And once successful, then it opens up many, many greater opportunities for the company, in particular in the Alzheimer's space. There are many parallels between how Parkinson's and Alzheimer's come about. We've had no clinical benefits in Alzheimer's disease whatsoever, including the drug that was recently approved based on a certain biomarker. And we all are hoping to be able to impact these major CNS or central nervous system diseases. If mechanistically what we believe we understand about the role of a misfolded protein in the disease is right, then 14809 is going to have a direct impact on that disease process, and patients ought to benefit. And if they benefit in Parkinson's, that will open up the opportunity for the exact same form of treatment to be applied in Alzheimer's and other diseases in the space. So I think it's a really exciting time for the company.
It is exciting to consider the medical possibilities for a potential breakthrough. I've been speaking with Dr. Milton Werner, President and CEO of Inhibicase Therapeutics. Again, visit that website, everybody. And Dr. Werner, we're going to have to check back with you at some point to see how the share price is doing, which I am very optimistic for, as well as the advancement of these potentially life-saving therapies. So thank you for coming on to Looking at the Markets, sir.
I appreciate it, David. I appreciate you taking the time, and for your readers to viewers to take the time to learn a little bit about Inhibicase.